Let's take a tour through the spinning program writing positions. This is a seated flat in hand position 1. All spinning rides begin and end in a seated flat. It creates the feeling of riding outdoors on a flat road. You can use hand position 1 during light intensity efforts, including the warm-up and cool-down. You can also ride a seated flat in hand position 2, which will open up your chest and allow you to breathe more deeply. Hand position 2.5 is a variation of hand position 2 and an option for those who want a longer reach. You'll use 2 and 2.5 for most of your ride. Sit on the widest part of the saddle with your shoulders and elbows relaxed and your head aligned with your spine. Your hips should be steady with the saddle with your pelvis in a neutral position. The cadence range for a seated flat is 80 to 110 RPM. To simulate riding a flat road outdoors, add some resistance by turning the resistance knob to the right. Notice the change in your pedaling effort. Before coming out of the saddle to a standing flat, be sure you have moderate resistance on the flywheel to support your body weight. Stand up on the pedals with your weight balanced over the center of the bike. Be sure you don't lean onto the handlebars. You want your shoulders relaxed, elbows slightly flexed, and your head aligned with your spine. Focus on smooth, fluid pedal strokes. The cadence range for a standing flat is 80 to 110 RPM. However, the most important thing is to pedal at a cadence that allows good form and technique. If you're just starting out, you may be more comfortable at a slower RPM. Jumps are used as a drill to practice smooth transitions between the seated and standing positions. Use your legs to lift you up and out of the saddle rather than pulling on the handlebars. Balance your weight over the center of the bike and be sure you're not leaning onto your hands. Maintain a smooth, fluid pedal stroke as you transition in and out of the saddle at a pace that allows you to maintain your form and technique. For hill climbs, turn the resistance knob to the right. The more resistance, the steeper the hill. Your pedaling will naturally slow down. The cadence range for a seated climb is 60 to 80 RPM. Sit back in the saddle with a light grip on the handlebars. Keep your shoulders and elbows relaxed. When the hill gets really challenging, use your breath to release that energy. Make sure you're not squeezing the handlebars or tensing up in your neck and shoulders. Another way to tackle a steep hill is out of the saddle in hand position 3. It's called a standing climb. This move will help you develop power. Your hips will be flexed a bit more than in a standing flat, and you may even feel the tip of the saddle brush against your inner thighs. While standing, your body weight assists in turning the pedals, but you still want to maintain smoothness and fluidity. You want a natural lateral rhythm, but avoid stomping on the pedals or an exaggerated side-to-side movement. The cadence range for a standing climb is the same as a seated climb, 60 to 80 RPM. When we transition from a seated climb to a standing climb, we call that jumps on a hill. If you were racing on a cycling team, you would do this to suddenly accelerate and break away from the pack or to power up a hill. In a spinning ride, we take this movement and repeat it as a drill to develop coordination and to increase intensity. Since it's a combination of a seated climb and a standing climb, you're in hand position 2 or 2.5 while seated and hand position 3 while standing. Running on a hill is similar to a standing flat, but with more resistance. However, the resistance is not as heavy as a standing climb. Use hand position 2 or 2.5. This is an advanced technique for riders who can perform a standing flat with good form and are ready for additional challenge. Balance your weight over the center of the bike, grip lightly on the handlebars, relax your shoulders, and hold your head in line with your spine. Because it's a hill, the cadence range is 60 to 80 RPM. A sprint is an advanced technique that requires maximal effort and is recommended only for riders who have developed a strong foundation in the fundamental riding skills. You'll feel like a cyclist in a race sprinting to the finish line. Start by adding a lot of resistance to the flywheel while trying to keep your cadence above 80 RPM. One type of sprint is to stay seated in the saddle the whole time. You want to maintain your cadence with as much power as you possibly can. Because sprints are maximal efforts, They should last no more than 30 seconds for the typical rider. To recover, take off most of the resistance and pedal slower. Find a comfortable flat road. The goal of the recovery is to lower your heart rate, stabilize your breathing, replenish energy stores, and prepare for the next work effort. Another way to do a sprint on a flat road includes a brief period where you stand out of the saddle. Again, start by adding a lot of resistance to the flywheel while trying to keep your cadence above 80 RPM but no higher than 110. Once you can no longer sustain this cadence, jump out of the saddle into hand position 3 with all of the leverage and power you can generate. Once you overcome the resistance and can increase your cadence substantially with a fluid pedal stroke, sit back in the saddle in hand position 2 or 2.5 and maintain your cadence with as much power as you possibly can. Sustain the effort with good form. To recover from that all-out effort, take off a lot of resistance to find a comfortable flat road. Keep your legs moving as you recover. Many people think a sprint means to pedal as fast as you can, but in reality, your cadence will not exceed 110 RPM because you've got a lot of resistance on the bike. You're creating that same feeling of sprinting on a road bike in a big gear. If you were racing, you wouldn't move very fast in a small gear, no matter how fast your pedals turned. So just remember, a sprint should never feel like your pedals are flying. It should feel like you're pushing a big gear on an outdoor bike, and it should be the most intense part of your ride. Another type of sprint is a sprint on a hill where you'll stay out of the saddle for the entire effort. You can start either in or out of the saddle with heavy resistance. For the sprint effort, you're out of the saddle, hand position 3, and maximal effort for 15 to 20 seconds without sitting down. Your cadence is slower than a sprint on a flat. Since this is a hill, you're pedaling between 60 to 80 RPM. Remember, sprints are very intense, advanced move for riders who are fit, experienced on the bike, healthy, and injury-free.